The following video is a children's retelling of the Zuni Creation Myth. It is intended for children who can already read and for learning readers. It contains some upper-level vocabulary, but this is intentional. This is meant to be a resource for children and parents to learn together about a culture that has maintained its uniqueness throughout thousands of years. The magic of myth is that it is without time and is not fixed in one telling. Origin myths are typically passed down orally, so the details are constantly changing while the core message stays the same. It evolves through each generation, just like the people who created it. The Zuni origin myth has many retellings and versions. Several prominent anthropologists when it comes to the Zuni are Frank Cushing, Ruth Bunzel, and Matilda Cox Stevenson. They have all recorded the version of the creation myth that they were told. This retelling is a combination of several versions of the myth. While it is a combination, most of the story is based off of Frank Cushing's original version. The original is a version that gives enough detail while also giving enough attention to major events to see a broad story. The choice to base this retelling after the original story was made because it is the first ever recorded version by a non-Zuni. In the beginning, Awana was the only one. There was no world, no sky, no water, nothing but blackness. Awana was lonely. He didn't even have his own body to look at. He was just a voice in the darkness. Since he had nothing to see, not even himself, he began to think. In his mind, he imagined that he was a man, and then became a man. He wanted to be more than just a man, so he became the sun too. His light shone through the darkness and created mist. The mist made clouds. The clouds got heavy with water drops, and rain fell. The rain pooled up and made all water. Then Awana took some of his skin and stretched it out. Out of his skin, he created plants and the waters. From the warm water, green algae grew. The algae became Earth Mother and Sky Father. Earth Mother was deep, containing 4 levels. Sky Father was above. Earth Mother and Sky Father had many babies. Their babies were all living creatures. Earth Mother then sank down away from Sky Father into the waters. They worried about their children. Earth Mother and Sky Father can change their shapes, like dancers change into characters when they put on masks. Earth Mother and Sky Father became a man and a woman. A huge bowl with terraced edges appeared in her hand with water in it. She said, "This is like the place my children will live. On the outside of their world, terraced mountains will stand, dividing their land into different parts." Next, she spat on the water and turned it up with her hand. She built up foam high on the top edges of the bowl. "They will get what they need from me and what gives me life," said Earth Mother. She drew in a deep breath and slowly blew warm air over the surface of the bowl, which caused the foam to float above the water. Just then, Sky Father blew a cold breath at the foam and turned the foam to rain. The rain covered Earth Mother. All life would live in her warmth. Sky Father raised his hand to place it on the waters. Before he laid it down, he put things that looked like kernels of corn into the wrinkles of his hand. After he had put his hand down and lifted it back up, the point shone brightly in the new world. He created these points so his children would be able to find their way. When Sky Father moved, so did the points, around the world where his children live. He said that never-ending grains would be scattered all over Earth Mother. They would sprout up into corn to feed his children. After this, Earth Mother and Sky Father had many more thoughts and did many more things to help their children. In the beginning of the world, every living thing on Earth lived in the 4th womb of the world, which was very deep underground, underneath all the other worlds. In the bottom world, there was no light. Everything was dark, and nothing could be seen. With no way to see, all the creatures lived the best they could, growing and working, often hurting each other on accident. Soon, the world became too crowded, and all the creatures could grow no more. They were miserable and cramped in the dark. Some of them dreamed of leaving their crowded world and started to learn and become more like men. Posh, who was born out of the deep water beneath the earth, was very wise. He began to travel to the top world. As he passed through the lower worlds, he pitied the creatures he encountered. Some even tried to follow him. Eventually, it became so crowded that none of the creatures could fit through the holes that lead to the upper worlds. So he ascended alone in and out of the worlds till he reached the top. When he emerged, he saw that the world was a great island, still like jelly in its new form. He started to walk, determined to find Awana so he could ask him to free all the creatures from their filthy, dark worlds. Posh found Awana, and Awana considered Posh's plea. He looked down upon the earth. He saw the foam the Earth Mother had created. He heated it, and out of it were born his sons, twins, one the preceder, the other the follower, one the right, one the left, one elder, one younger, both born of the light. Awana gave them a cloud bow and thunderbolt arrows. He gave them other gifts as well, such as wisdom, a fog shield for protection, thunder knives, and authority over all men and creatures. With these gifts, the twins were to go fulfill Posh's plea and bring life to the top world to be in the light with Awana. The boys then took the cloud bow and raised it, pushing Father Sky upwards, making it warmer so things could live more easily in the top world. After this, they flew on the fog shield back to the mountains where Posh had climbed up from. They cleaved open the mountains with their thunder knives and descended to the fourth world. In the darkness of the fourth world, the twins lived with the creatures and came to know and understand them. They became the beings' fathers and masters, and tried to find a way to get the creatures out of the bottom world and into the top world where Awana waited for them. In the dark world, there were grasses and vines that grew. The twins breathed on them to help them grow. They guided them in their growth, and the vines became a ladder, growing towards the hole leading to the world above. Some creatures followed the twins up into the next world. Many fell behind and were lost in the darkness, left to live in the underworld. In this black world, they became monsters. It was still dark in the third world, but it was much bigger than the fourth world. The creatures still wanted to go to the next world and started to complain to the twins. The twins made the ladder grow again, but told the creatures that they would have to wait and take turns coming up to the next world. Waiting would make them all different, creating yellow, gray, red, white, mixed, and black people, along with the gods they worshipped and their animals. Some came up from the second world, but many were left behind. The second world was even higher up and had more light than the third. Here, people began to multiply, not all together, but into different tribes and types of people. This world became overfilled like the others. The creatures started to complain again, so the twins made another ladder. Just like the worlds before, creatures came through to the next world, but many were left behind. In the second world, there was more light, and the twins immediately taught the people to find the Sun Father. He would be their teacher. Finally, this world too began to fill up, and so the twins led the creatures into the great upper world. In the new world, 4 days and 4 nights lasted 8 years. The men only came out at night at first, but the starlight burned their eyes so badly they thought it was the sun. People and animals were much more alike than they are now. People were black, cold, and scaly, like mud monsters with large, strange eyes like an owl, ears like a bat, webbed feet, and tails. They did not walk upright. The men crouched or crawled along the ground. When the Sun Father finally rose from the east, they were blinded by his light and scorched by his heat. They threw themselves to the ground, thrashing around and covering their eyes with their arms and hands, but they could not look away, drawn to his light like a moth. Eventually, they got used to the light and heat of the Sun Father. They started standing and walking upright. When they began walking around upright, they saw each other for the first time. They were horrified at the way they looked and went gathering bark and rushes to cover themselves. Their feet became sore from walking on only 2 feet, so they made sandals out of yucca to protect their feet. The men started to learn and know things. The more they learned, the more they shared with one another. They were given gifts and knowledge from the Sun Father, and twins, and other gods. The twins and the gods gathered together and started naming the tribes of people, types of creatures, spaces, and things. It was decided that the creatures and things of summer and southern places were the people of Earth Mother, and the creatures of winter and northern places were the people of Sky Father. Some of the people of summer loved the sun most, and so they became the sun's people. Some loved water more and became the toad people, frog people, or turtle people. Some loved seeds and soil and became the seed people, like the first growing grass people or the tobacco people. Some people loved being warm and became the fire or badger people. The winter people were named after what they looked like or for the things they were good at, like the bear, coyote, deer, crane, turkey, or grouse people. This is how it came to be that the clans of the Zuni are separated the way they are, even today. The leaders of each clan were called together by their gods and given gifts according to his clan. The Badger people were given the Great Shell, which controls fire and earthquakes. They were also made keepers of the Heart Shell and made the makers and keepers of fire. The Bear, Crane, and Grouse people were given the seeds for hail, snow, and new soil. The Toad and other water people received the seeds of water, and the seed clans were given the seeds of corn. This is how the world came to be. This is how people came to be. This is the beginning. The Zuni people live in parts of current-day New Mexico and Arizona. The largest Zuni settlement is the Zuni Pueblo beside the Zuni River. The Zuni have been in this location dating back 3,000 to 4,000 years. They had encounters with the Spanish in the 17th century and moved to their present-day location. Their language is unique and unrelated to any other Native American language. It is believed that they have maintained the integrity of their language for around 7,000 years. Frank Cushing was the first anthropologist to study the Zuni. In 1879, Cushing went on an expedition with Colonel James Stevenson for the Bureau of Ethnology to the Zuni Pueblo. After the expedition's end, Cushing decided to stay behind to be a participant observer. While the tribe was not initially okay with this idea, eventually he was adopted by the governor of the Pueblo and allowed to participate in Zuni religious activities. He was initiated into the warrior society. Cushing even rode with the Zuni war party against the Navajo. In 1877, there was a bill passed that defined the limits of Zuni property. Unfortunately, these parameters left out a large section of traditionally Zuni land. They were left out due to some claims of the land by Major Tucker and two other individuals. The tribe asked Cushing for help, so Cushing wrote letters defending the Zuni to newspapers in Chicago and Boston. Tucker's father-in-law was a senator and later vice presidential candidate, whose reputation took a hit when these letters hit the papers. The senator threatened Cushing's director with budget cuts if Cushing was not called home immediately. Cushing would return for a time in 1886, but didn't get to stay long. Several other anthropologists would study the Zuni culture. Matilda Cox Stevenson, Ruth Benedict, and Ruth Bunzel are three prominent anthropologists that each extensively studied the Zuni. Matilda Cox Stevenson published almost exclusively about the Zuni, but did study other southwestern Native American tribes. Stevenson was married to Colonel Stevenson, who led the initial expedition to the Zuni Pueblo. When Cushing was recalled to Washington, Stevenson took his place. She sometimes convinced the Zuni to allow her to witness restricted religious rites. She gave some of the first insight to the activities of women in Zuni culture, because most of them are restricted from men. Only a handful of photographs have ever been taken of the Zuni, though their art is put on display and sold by some traditional artists. Zuni are famous for their pottery, beads, jewelry, and special fetish items. The Zuni world is comprised of 6 different regions with a mountain in the center that holds great significance. Each region has their own prey animal. This prey animal is the guardian and ruler of the region. The 6 prey animals are a mountain lion, a bear, a badger, an eagle, a mole, and a wolf. The Zuni carve fetish items out of different materials such as turquoise, jet, shell, coral, marble, pipestone, serpentine, or antler. Fetish items are small figures that are hand-carved depicting different animals that are usually sacred to the Zuni. The typical animals used for fetish items are a wolf, badger, bear, eagle, mountain lion, mole, frog, or deer. While some of these fetish items are made with religious intent, many were and are sold or traded to outsiders. Some artists today carve non-traditional fetish items depicting insects and other non-sacred animals, but these animals usually have a more symbolic meaning. The horse was usually carved for trade purposes because of the horse's significance to other Native American tribes. The Zuni culture is extremely complex and secretive. Outsiders are never allowed to participate in any religious ceremonies, and few receive permission to view religious ceremonies at all. The Zuni culture revolves entirely around their traditional religious life. Some religious ceremonies can be prepared for up to a year. Masks are a large part of Zuni religious culture. Performers wear masks and participate in long ceremonies involving dancing and acting out traditional stories. Even in the making of their homes, there are religious rituals. Every home has a hole in the floor to remind the people where they came from. The Pueblo houses can be 3 to 4 stories tall with flat roofs. They use ladders to ascend levels. When the Zuni encountered the Spanish in the 17th century, they fought the encroachment. Eventually, Spanish missionaries built a mission, and the Zuni integrated Catholicism into their own religious culture.